Staying calm is not about being polite, patient, or pretending to be kind. Staying calm is about power. The moment another person controls your emotions, you hand them authority over your life. Unbearable people don't destroy your peace, your reaction does. And that is the brutal truth. Most people refuse to accept. Unbearable people exist for one reason: to test your self-mastery. Life does not reward the loud, the reactive, or the emotionally weak. It rewards the individual who can think clearly under pressure. When someone provokes you, insults you, or drains you, they are offering you a choice: react like the average person or rise above like the disciplined one. Every emotional outburst is a confession of weakness. Anger feels powerful, but it is the fastest way to lose control. The calm mind always wins because it sees options others miss. While others argue, complain, or explode, the focused individual observes, decides, and moves forward. That is how influence is built. Not through noise, but through control. You cannot control people, but you can control your response. And that control is the foundation of achievement. When you stay calm, you protect your energy. When you protect your energy, you protect your focus. And focus is the gateway to every meaningful result in life. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. When you refuse to react, you deny unbearable people the reward they seek. They feed on attention, chaos, and emotional engagement. Starve them. Let your actions speak where words would only weaken you. Understand this clearly. Ego is the real enemy. The need to be right, to win arguments, to prove yourself. That urge will cost you more than any insult ever could. Strong minds do not argue with distractions. They move past them. Every time you stay calm, you train your mind for greater challenges. You are not just surviving the moment, you are building discipline. And discipline compounds. Today it's an annoying person. Tomorrow it's pressure, setbacks, and obstacles that would crush the undisciplined. Calm people make better decisions. Better decisions create better outcomes. Better outcomes create authority, respect, and success. This is not emotional advice. This is practical power. So the next time you face an unbearable person, remember this: they are not in your way. They are your training ground. Stay calm, stay focused, and let your self-mastery do the talking. That is how winners think. That is how leaders move. That is how control is earned. If you want, I can make this shorter and more aggressive. Convert it into a viral YouTube speechper. Rewrite it for Reels, Shortspur, or make it even more cold and dominant per. The word ALM is power, not personality. Strong starts line expended, and Donnet heading in 800, words per. ALM is power, not personality. It is not softness, not politeness, not weakness dressed as maturity. Calm is the visible result of inner control. When you stay calm, you are not being passive. You are asserting dominance over chaos. The world is loud, emotional, impatient, and reactive. Anyone can lose control, anyone can explode, but very few can remain steady when pressure rises. That steadiness is not accidental. It is trained, and it separates leaders from followers, winners from complainers, thinkers from noisemakers. Us people believe unbearable people are the problem. They are wrong. Unbearable people are constant. They will always exist in workplaces, families, markets, and societies. The real problem is the lack of discipline in the mind that reacts automatically. The moment someone's words shake you, distract you, or push you into emotional response, you have already lost leverage. Not because they were strong, but because you were unguarded. Every reaction costs energy, and energy is currency. Spend it on arguments, ego battles, and emotional drama, and you will have nothing left for creation, progress, or growth. Calm people conserve energy. They choose where to invest it. They don't waste it proving points to people who don't matter or reacting to behavior that has no long-term value. When someone provokes you and you react emotionally, you give them exactly what they want: control, control over your mood, control over your focus, control over your time. Calm removes that control. Calm turns the situation around. Suddenly you are observing while they are exposed. Suddenly you are thinking while they are leaking emotion. That shift alone changes the entire dynamic. Anger feels powerful, but it is borrowed power. It burns fast and leaves nothing behind. Calm is earned power. It builds slowly and compounds. A calm mind can see consequences. An angry mind can only see the moment. That is why most people sabotage themselves at critical points, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack emotional command. The disciplined individual understands a simple law. You cannot always choose what happens to you, but you always choose how much control it has over you. Calm is that choice in action. It is the refusal to let external behavior dictate internal state. It is the decision to stay centered while others lose balance. Silence in these moments is not weakness. Silence is precision. Words spoken emotionally reduce your position. Words spoken calmly increase it. And sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. When you do not react, you deny others the satisfaction of disruption. You force them to confront their own behavior without your participation. That is psychological strength. Unbearable people often rely on one thing: predictable reactions. They expect anger, defense, explanation, or justification. When they do not receive it, they lose ground. Calm breaks their pattern. And when patterns break, power shifts. Ego is the real trap. The need to be right, the need to be heard, the need to win arguments. These needs drain focus and create unnecessary battles. Strong minds do not argue for validation. They act with intention. They move forward while others stay stuck, proving themselves. Every time you choose calm over reaction, you train your mind for higher responsibility. You are not just handling a person, you are strengthening your ability to operate under pressure. Today it is an irritating conversation. Tomorrow it is a critical decision, a financial risk, a leadership moment. The habit of calm carries over. Calm also sharpens judgment. When emotions are quiet, logic becomes clear. You begin to see motives, patterns, and outcomes more accurately. You stop taking things personally and start seeing them strategically. That shift alone elevates your thinking above the average. Success does not belong to the loudest or the most reactive. It belongs to those who can remain focused while others lose direction. Calm allows consistency. Consistency builds trust. Trust creates influence. Influence opens doors that force never can. This is not about suppressing emotion. It is about mastering it. Emotion is energy, and energy must be directed, not unleashed. Calm is the channel through which energy becomes productive instead of destructive. When you stay calm with unbearable people, you are sending a message, not to them, but to yourself. A message that says, I am in control. I decide my state. I do not surrender my power to external noise. That mindset changes how you walk, speak, and decide. It changes how people treat you, not because you demand respect, but because calm commands it naturally. So understand this plea. Arlie, unbearable people are not obstacles. They are training. They are resistance designed to reveal your level of self-command. Each encounter is an opportunity to either strengthen your discipline or expose its absence. Choose calm, not because it is easy, but because it is powerful. Choose calm because control is the foundation of achievement. Choose calm because the person who masters the mind masters the outcome. Unbearable people are tests, not problems. Strong starts line, expend it, and don't heading in 800 words. Unbearable people are tests, not problems. They are not accidents, not curses, not unfair obstacles placed in your life to slow you down. They are pressure points designed to expose how much control you actually have over yourself. Anyone can stay composed when conditions are comfortable. Anyone can be polite when respected. But the true measure of strength appears when patience is stretched, ego is challenged, and emotions are provoked. Most people fail this test without realizing it. They blame the person, the situation, the timing. They say, if only people were different, I would be calm. That belief is weakness disguised as logic. The world does not adjust itself to your comfort. It tests you, and unbearable people are one of its favorite tools. The moment someone irritates you, interrupts your focus, or disrespects you, the test begins. Will you react automatically, or will you respond deliberately? Reaction is instinct. Response is discipline. One leaks power, the other builds it. Every time you choose reaction, you confirm that external behavior controls your internal state. Every time you choose response, you prove the opposite. Unbearable people often carry traits you dislike because those traits challenge your sense of order, control, or ego. They talk too much, complain too often, disrespect boundaries, or seek attention, but their behavior is not what drains you. Your mental engagement with it does. You don't lose energy because they exist. You lose energy because you fight them emotionally instead of mastering yourself mentally. Think clearly. If someone can disturb your peace with words, they have leverage over you. That leverage is not given by them, it is granted by you. And once granted, it spreads. Focus breaks, judgment weakens. Time is wasted replaying conversations that produce no progress. Unbearable people test whether you are governed by emotion or by intention. Emotion is fast, loud, and short-sighted. Intention is quiet, controlled, and long-term. The undisciplined mind chooses the first and pays for it later. The disciplined mind chooses the second and moves forward while others stay stuck in conflict. These tests are uncomfortable by design. Comfort does not build strength. Friction does. Without resistance, muscles weaken. Without pressure, judgment dulls. Unbearable people apply that resistance to your emotional system. They force you to either evolve or repeat old patterns. Most people repeat. They argue, complain, explode, withdraw, or seek validation. Then they wonder why the same situations keep appearing. The lesson was never learned. The test was failed. Life repeats tests until mastery is demonstrated. When you remain calm, focused, and composed around unbearable people, something shifts. You stop seeing them as enemies and start seeing them as indicators. Indicators of where your patience ends. Indicators of where ego still rules. Indicators of what still needs control. That awareness alone is progress. Silence becomes a strategic choice, not because you are afraid to speak, but because you understand when speaking adds value and when it subtracts it. You stop feeding chaos. You stop trying to correct everyone. You stop wasting strength on people who are not aligned with your direction. Unbearable people thrive on reaction. They lose influence when denied it. When you do not react, they are left with their own behavior, exposed and unreinforced. Meanwhile, you preserve clarity, and clarity is the foundation of intelligent action. This does not mean tolerating disrespect endlessly. It means choosing your moves consciously. Calm does not mean passive. Calm means precise. You decide when to engage, when to disengage, and when to act without emotion clouding judgment. Every successful individual has faced unbearable people, not once but repeatedly. The difference is not circumstance, it is response. Those who rise learn to convert irritation into discipline, frustration into focus, and pressure into control. Each test strengthens your mental endurance. Each victory over reaction builds confidence that cannot be shaken by noise. Over time, you become harder to disturb, harder to manipulate, harder to distract. That is not emotional numbness. That is emotional mastery. Unbearable people also reveal priorities. If a minor interaction can derail your day, your focus is fragile. If an insult can change your mood, your foundation is unstable. Tests expose weaknesses so they can be corrected. Ignoring that is how people stay average. The disciplined mind understands a simple truth: you do not need to control others to succeed. You only need to control yourself. When that control is strong, external behavior loses its power to interfere. So when the next unbearable person appears, do not ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What is this testing?" Your patience, your ego, your focus, your ability to stay centered under pressure? Answer that question with action, not emotion. Pass the test once, and it becomes easier next time. Pass it consistently, and you outgrow the environment that created it. Life promotes those who demonstrate control. Unbearable people are not. Problems to eliminate. They are tests to pass. And every test passed moves you closer to mastery, of mind, of focus, and ultimately of outcome. Emotional reactions are self-sabotage. Strong starts line, expend it, and don't heading in 800 words. Emotional reactions are self-sabotage. They feel justified in the moment, but they quietly destroy progress, clarity, and control. The instant you react without thinking, you trade long-term power for short-term relief. That trade is always a loss. No exception. Every emotional outburst, every defensive reply, every impulsive decision is proof that discipline stepped aside and impulse took the wheel. Most people mistake reaction for honesty. They say, "I'm just being real," or "I'm expressing how I feel." In reality, they are advertising a lack of control. Feelings are temporary. Consequences are permanent. The world does not reward emotional honesty. It rewards intelligent action. And intelligence disappears the moment emotions dominate decision-making. When someone provokes you and you react emotionally, you give them influence over your behavior. Your mood shifts. Your focus breaks. Your energy drains. Now they are no longer just a person in your environment. They are directing your internal state. That is sabotage, and it is self-inflicted. Every emotional reaction narrows vision. Logic fades. Options disappear. You see only the insult, the frustration, the moment. This is why people say things they regret, send messages they wish they could delete, and make choices that cost them opportunities. Not because they are incapable, but because they allowed emotion to outrun thought. Anger is the most common form of this sabotage. It feels powerful, but it is reckless. It convinces you that force will solve what strategy could handle better. In anger, people speak too much, reveal too much, and commit too soon. Calm minds negotiate. Angry minds escalate. Escalation rarely ends in victory. Fear is another silent saboteur. It pushes hesitation, avoidance, and overthinking. Under fear, people miss chances, delay action, and accept less than they are capable of achieving. Fear disguises itself as caution, but its results are always limitation. Ego-driven reactions are equally destructive. The urge to defend yourself, prove a point, or win an argument pulls attention away from progress. While you are busy protecting your image, time moves on. Opportunities do not wait for emotional resolution. They reward decisiveness and clarity. Self-sabotage is dangerous because it feels natural. Reactions happen fast. They bypass reason. That speed creates the illusion of truth. But D without direction is chaos. Discipline slows the moment just enough for intelligence to intervene. The strongest individuals understand that emotion is energy. Energy can either be directed or wasted. When directed, it fuels persistence, creativity, and resilience. When wasted, it becomes drama, conflict, and regret. Emotional reaction is wasted energy. Every reaction trains the mind. React repeatedly, and reactivity becomes your default state. Control becomes harder. Focus becomes fragile. Over time, this shapes identity. People begin to describe themselves as hot-tempered, sensitive, or stressed, without realizing these are learned behaviors, reinforced by repetition. The disciplined mind interrupts this cycle. It pauses. It observes. It asks one question before responding: what outcome do I want? That question alone filters out most emotional responses. It replaces impulse with intention. Emotional control does not mean emotional suppression. Suppression is denial. Control is choice. You feel the emotion, but you do not allow it to command your actions. You decide how and when to act. That decision preserves leverage. In high-pressure moments, this difference is everything. Careers are built or destroyed by how people handle pressure. Relationships rise or collapse based on emotional restraint or lack of it. Leadership is impossible without control. No one follows someone who reacts to everything. Self-sabotage often hides behind justification. They deserved it. I had no choice. Anyone would react. These phrases are excuses designed to protect ego, not results. The disciplined individual takes responsibility even when provoked. Especially when provoked, every time you resist reacting emotionally, you strengthen self-command. That strength compounds. You become harder to manipulate, harder to distract, harder to destabilize. Calm becomes your baseline. You're your exception. Over time, people notice, not because you announce it, but because your behavior speaks. You respond instead of react. You act instead of explode. You move forward while others remain trapped in emotional loops. The cost of emotional reactions is invisible at first, but massive over time. Lost respect, missed opportunities, broken focus, damaged credibility. These losses do not appear immediately, but they accumulate quietly. Mastery begins the moment you accept this truth. No one sabotages you more effectively than you do when emotion overrides discipline. Once you see that clearly, reaction loses its appeal. Control your response and you control your direction. Lose control and you sabotage your own future. Control of self beats control of others. Strong starts line expend it and don't heading in. 800 words. Control of self beats control of others. The desire to control people, situations, outcomes, and environments is the most common distraction from real power. People exhaust themselves trying to manage behavior that was never theirs to command, while neglecting the one domain that determines everything else, their own mind. External control is fragile. Internal control is permanent. The urge to control others comes from insecurity, not strength. When you feel stable within yourself, you don't need to dominate conversations, manipulate outcomes, or force agreement. You act with clarity, and clarity influences more effectively than pressure ever could. The world resists control, but it responds to certainty. Most conflicts are born from the illusion that you can change people by force, emotion, or argument. You cannot. You can pressure, intimidate, persuade, or guilt, but none of it lasts. People may comply temporarily, but internally they resist, and resistance always finds a way to surface. Trying to control others is a constant battle with diminishing returns. Self-control, on the other hand, compounds. The moment you master your reactions, your focus, and your discipline, your presence changes. You speak less but with more weight. You act without desperation. You stop chasing compliance and start attracting cooperation. That is the difference between authority and control. When you lack self-control, you seek it externally. You argue more. You interrupt more. You explain yourself excessively. You demand respect instead of earning it. All of these behaviors reveal instability. People sense it instantly, even if they cannot articulate it. Control of self begins with emotional command. If someone can trigger anger, insecurity, or defensiveness in you, they already have leverage. Not because they are powerful, but because your inner state is unguarded. Emotional control removes that leverage completely. Insults lose weight. Provocation loses purpose. Manipulation fails. This does not mean disengaging from the world or becoming indifferent. It means choosing when and how to engage. Self-control gives you options. Lack of it forces reactions. Options create power. Reactions create regret. Those who master themselves understand timing. They know when to speak and when silence will speak louder. They know when to push and when patience will achieve more. They know that forcing outcomes often destroys them, while allowing events to unfold under calm guidance produces better results. People who try to control others are always tense. They monitor behavior constantly. They correct endlessly. They feel threatened by independence and disagreement. This tension drains energy and clouds judgment. Meanwhile, the self-controlled individual is free. Their stability does not depend on obedience from others. True influence does not announce itself. It operates quietly. When you are consistent, calm, and disciplined, people adjust naturally. They mirror your pace. They respect your boundaries, not because they are told to, but because stability commands respect. History, business, leadership, and personal relationships all reveal the same pattern. Those who cannot control themselves lose credibility. Those who control themselves gain trust. Trust creates followership. Followership creates impact. Self-control also protects you from manipulation. Emotional people are predictable. Predictability makes them easy to provoke, distract, and derail. The controlled mind is unpredictable in the best way. Not reactive, not impulsive, not easily pushed. That unpredictability keeps leverage in your hands. The strongest individuals are not loud. They are centered. They do not need to dominate rooms to be felt. Their calm creates gravity. Their decisions carry weight because they are not driven by impulse or insecurity. Trying to control others often leads to resentment. Resentment poisons relationships and environments. Self-control, by contrast, creates respect even in disagreement. You can disagree without conflict when ego is not in charge. Every moment presents a choice: attempt to control what you cannot or master what you can. One path leads to frustration, the other leads to freedom. Freedom of thought, freedom of action, freedom from emotional dependency on external behavior. When you control yourself, you no longer need others to behave a certain way for you to be effective. You adapt, you adjust, you move forward regardless of conditions. That ability is rare, and rarity creates value. This is why self-control is the foundation of leadership. Not titles, not authority, not force. Leadership begins with mastery of self. Without it, everything else collapses under pressure. Control of self beats control of others because it cannot be taken away. It cannot be resisted. It cannot be manipulated. It shapes how you think, decide, and act in every situation. Master yourself, and you will never need to chase power. It will follow you naturally. Silence is a strategic weapon. Strong starts line, expend it, and don't heading in 800 words. Silence is a strategic weapon. It is not the absence of strength, but the presence of control. In a world addicted to noise, explanation, and constant reaction, the person who can remain silent holds an unfair advantage. Most people speak to release emotion, to defend ego, or to fill discomfort. The disciplined individual uses silence to observe, to think, and to choose precisely. Talking too much is rarely confidence. It is often insecurity leaking out. People explain themselves excessively when they want validation. They argue when they want control. They interrupt when they fear losing attention. Silence removes all of that weakness. It reveals nothing and forces others to reveal themselves. When you speak emotionally, you give away information. You expose intentions, insecurities, and limits. Every unnecessary word reduces leverage. Silence protects leverage. It keeps your position strong and your options open. You cannot take back words once released, but you can always choose when to speak. In confrontation, silence unsettles. It disrupts expectation. Most people anticipate reaction, anger, defense, justification. When none comes, they lose balance. They fill the gap with their own words, often exposing more than they intended. Silence shifts pressure away from you and onto them. This is why silence feels uncomfortable to undisciplined minds. They confuse quiet with weakness because they rely on noise to feel powerful. But power does not announce itself. It waits, it watches, it moves when timing is right. Silence also preserves energy. Arguments drain focus. Explanations consume time. Emotional conversations spiral without. Resolution. The quiet mind steps out of that spiral. It refuses to engage in battles that offer no return. Strategic silence is selective engagement. In negotiations, silence is leverage. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. Pauses create tension, and tension reveals priorities. The person who rushes to fill silence usually gives up ground. The one who remains calm gains it. Silence does not mean avoidance. It means discipline. It means you do not react just because you are provoked. You decide whether engagement serves your objective. If it doesn't, silence becomes the most efficient response. Many people believe they must correct every misunderstanding, respond to every insult, and explain every decision. That belief traps them in endless defense. Strategic silence breaks that trap. Not every challenge deserves your voice. Some deserve your indifference. Silence also builds authority. Leaders who speak sparingly are listened to carefully. Their words are not diluted by excess. When they finally speak, attention sharpens. This is not coincidence. It is psychological gravity created by restraint. In emotional situations, silence prevents damage. Words spoken in anger cannot be unsaid. Silence buys time. Time allows emotion to settle and intelligence to return. That pause alone can prevent mistakes that cost months or years to repair. Silence forces self-control. It trains you to sit with discomfort without reacting. That ability strengthens emotional endurance. Over time, silence becomes natural, not forced. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself through speech. Unbearable people lose power in silence. They thrive on reaction. They seek engagement. Deny them that, and they are left exposed. Silence starves provocation. Without reaction, there is nothing to feed on. Silence also sharpens listening. When you are not preparing to speak, you hear more. You notice tone, intent, and inconsistency. Information becomes clearer, and information is power. Strategic silence is not permanent. It is purposeful. When you speak, you do it with clarity, precision, and intention. No emotional overflow, no unnecessary explanation, just impact. Most mistakes in life come from speaking too soon. The disciplined individual waits. They let situations unfold. They allow others to reveal themselves. Then they act from a position of understanding, not impulse. Silence is misunderstood because it is rare. It requires confidence, patience, and restraint. But those who master it operate above chaos. They are not pulled into every conflict. They choose their battles and win them. Silence is a weapon because it protects you, strengthens you, and positions you advantageously. Used correctly, it speaks louder than any argument. Those who control silence control outcomes. Ego is the real enemy, not people. Strong starts line, expend it, and don't heading in 800 words. Ego is the real enemy, not people. People are only triggers. Ego is what pulls the trigger. Most conflicts, frustrations, and self-inflicted wounds are not caused by what others do, but by the internal need to defend image, pride, and identity. The moment ego takes control, clarity leaves, and progress becomes collateral damage. Ego demands recognition. It wants to be right, to be seen, to be validated. When someone challenges you, ignores you, or disrespects you, ego interprets it as a threat, not to your safety, but to your self-image. And in that moment, ego convinces you that reacting is necessary. It is not. It is optional. And it is costly. People do not steal your peace. Ego gives it away. If a comment can disturb your mood, it is not the comment that is powerful. It is the meaning ego assigns to it. Ego personalizes everything. It turns neutral events into insults and minor disagreements into wars. Ego thrives on comparison. It measures status, attention, and approval. When others seem ahead, ego feels diminished. When others disagree, ego feels attacked. This constant evaluation drains focus and locks the mind into defensive mode. While ego is busy protecting image, progress stands still. The ego-driven mind reacts quickly and speaks loudly. It interrupts, argues, and justifies. It believes that silence equals loss and restraint equals weakness. In reality, ego fears silence because silence exposes insecurity. A controlled mind is not threatened by quiet. Most arguments exist only because ego refuses to step back. If ego were removed, many conflicts would dissolve instantly. What remains is logic, intention, and choice. Ego adds emotional weight where none is needed. Ego also sabotages learning. The need to appear knowledgeable prevents growth. Feedback feels like attack. Correction feels like disrespect. As a result, ego blocks improvement and keeps people repeating the same mistakes under the illusion of competence. When ego is in charge, decisions are made to protect pride, not results. People stay in losing positions because leaving would look like failure. They reject better ideas because they were not their own. They escalate conflicts just to avoid appearing weak. All of this is self-destruction disguised as strength. True confidence does not need defense. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need to win every exchange. It is quiet, stable, and flexible. Ego is rigid. Confidence adapts. That is the difference between growth and stagnation. People you label as difficult, disrespectful, or unbearable are often mirrors. They expose where ego is still active. The irritation you feel is a signal, not a sentence. It points to an attachment that needs to be released. Ego resists accountability. It prefers blame. Blame, protect. TS image but solves nothing. Responsibility, though uncomfortable, creates control. The moment you take responsibility for your reactions, ego loses its grip. Humility is not self-devaluation. It is accurate self-assessment. It allows you to see clearly without distortion. Without humility, ego exaggerates both threats and self-importance. Clarity disappears under that distortion. Leadership is impossible with unchecked ego. Leaders must listen, adapt, and decide objectively. Ego-driven leaders create fear, resentment, and instability. Controlled leaders create trust and momentum. Ego also fuels emotional reactions. Anger, defensiveness, and resentment are ego's tools. They distract from rational action and pull focus into useless battles. Calm dismantles ego. Silence starves it. Discipline weakens it. Letting go of ego does not mean letting people walk over you. It means choosing response over reaction. It means setting boundaries without drama. It means correcting without hostility. Strength without ego is clean and effective. The most dangerous thing about ego is that it feels justified. It convinces you that you are protecting yourself, when in reality you are protecting a fragile image. Results do not care about image. Progress does not respect pride. When ego steps aside, life becomes simpler. Decisions become clearer. People lose their power to provoke. Focus sharpens. Energy is no longer wasted on proving, defending, or comparing. Ego is not defeated by force. It is dissolved by awareness. The moment you see it, it weakens. The moment you question it, it loses authority. People are not the enemy. Circumstances are not the enemy. Ego is the real enemy. And mastery begins the moment you stop fighting the world and start disciplining the self. Focus collapses when emotions lead strong starts, line expended and don't heading in 800 words. Focus collapses when emot. Ions lead. The moment feelings take the driver's seat, attention fractures, priorities blur, and progress slows to a crawl. Emotion feels urgent, loud, and convincing, but it is short-sighted. It reacts to the moment, not the mission. When emotion leads, focus no longer serves purpose, it serves impulse. Most people don't lose focus because they lack goals. They lose focus because they allow every emotional signal to redirect their attention. A comment, a delay, a setback, an insult. Suddenly the mind is no longer on the task. It is replaying conversations, defending pride, or feeding frustration. Work stops, but the mind stays busy. That busyness is mistaken for productivity, yet nothing of value is being built. Emotion narrows vision. When you are angry, you see only the problem. When you are afraid, you see only the risk. When you are excited, you ignore consequences. Each emotional state distorts reality in its own way. Focus requires perspective, and perspective disappears when emotion dominates. This is why pressure breaks most people. Under stress, emotions rise. As they rise, focus weakens. Decisions become rushed or avoided. Details are missed. Discipline fades. What looked manageable suddenly feels overwhelming, not because the task changed, but because emotion hijacked attention. Emotional leadership of the mind creates constant switching. One moment you are motivated, the next you are discouraged. One comment lifts you, another ruins your mood. Focus cannot survive in a mind that keeps changing direction. Consistency requires emotional stability. The disciplined individual understands that emotion is information, not instruction. Feelings signal something, but they do not decide action. When you treat emotion as a command, you surrender control. When you treat it as data, you retain authority over your behavior. Most distractions are emotional in disguise. Procrastination is often fear. Overworking is often anxiety. Arguing is often ego. Scrolling endlessly is often avoidance. Until emotion is addressed, focus will always be temporary. Focus thrives on clarity. Clarity requires calm. Calm does not eliminate emotion, it contains it. It creates space between feeling and action. In that space, intention can operate. People who achieve sustained results are not emotionless. They are regulated. They feel frustration without quitting. They feel excitement without losing discipline. They feel pressure without panicking. That regulation keeps focus intact even when conditions are unstable. When emotions lead, priorities shift toward comfort. You choose what feels good now instead of what builds progress. You avoid difficult tasks. You chase quick relief. Focus demands discomfort. Emotion resists it. This is why motivation alone is unreliable. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls. Focus anchored to emotion will rise and fall with it. Discipline anchors focus to commitment, not mood. In emotionally charged moments, silence and pause become critical tools. They prevent impulse from turning into action. They protect focus by slowing the process long enough for logic to return. Every emotional reaction trains the brain. React often, and focus becomes fragile. Regulate consistently, and focus becomes resilient. Over time, your default state shifts from reactive to deliberate. The world rewards those who can maintain focus under emotional pressure. Deadlines, conflict, competition, and uncertainty are constants. Emotional leadership collapses under these conditions. Self-leadership endures. Focus is not the ability to concentrate once. It is the ability to return to the task again and again, regardless of internal noise. That return is impossible when emotion is in control. When you feel overwhelmed, it is rarely because is too much to do. It is because emotion is pulling attention in multiple directions. Calm brings attention back to one point, one task, one decision. Strong focus also protects mental health. Constant emotional swings exhaust the nervous system. Stability restores it. A regulated mind conserves energy and applies it where it matters. You cannot eliminate emotion, but you can refuse to let it lead. When emotion leads, focus collapses. When discipline leads, focus sharpens. Master the order, feel, then think, then act. Reverse it, and everything breaks. Every reaction trains your future behavior. Strong starts line, expend it, and don't heading in. 800 words. Every reaction trains your future behavior. Nothing you do in the moment is isolated. Every response, every outburst, every pause, every restraint is a rehearsal for who you are becoming. The mind is always learning, always recording patterns. It does not judge whether a reaction is good or bad. It only learns what is repeated, and what is repeated becomes automatic. Most people believe reactions are harmless because they feel temporary. Anger fades, frustration passes, excitement cools down, but the nervous system remembers. The brain wires itself around what you do most often under pressure. React emotionally today, and you make it easier to react emotionally tomorrow. Pause today, and restraint becomes easier next time. This is not philosophy. This is conditioning. The danger is that reactions feel justified. Someone disrespects you, and anger feels appropriate. Something goes wrong, and frustration feels natural. But the brain does not care about justification. It cares about behavior. It strengthens whatever pathway you choose in the moment. Justification is how people train habits they later regret. Each reaction shortens the distance between stimulus and response. Over time, you stop choosing and start default. Elting. You say things without thinking. You lose focus without noticing. You sabotage progress before awareness even arrives. That is how people wake up one day and say, "This is just how I am." Without realizing, they train themselves into that identity. Self-discipline works the same way, but in the opposite direction. Every time you choose restraint over reaction, you lengthen the pause between impulse and action. That pause is where control lives. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, calm replaces chaos as your default response. People underestimate how small reactions shape large outcomes. A sharp reply today becomes a reputation tomorrow. A moment of silence today becomes authority over time. A habit of complaining becomes a life of stagnation. A habit of composure becomes momentum. The mind is a prediction machine. It predicts how you will respond based on how you responded before. If anger solved problems in the past, the mind reaches for anger again. If silence preserved dignity, the mind learns to pause. You are constantly teaching your mind what works, even when it doesn't actually work. This is why emotional reactions are so dangerous. They create immediate relief while causing long-term damage. The relief tricks the brain into believing the reaction was useful. But the consequences arrive later. Broken focus, damaged trust, lost opportunities. By then, the pattern is already reinforced. Reactions also shape perception. If you react defensively often, the world begins to look hostile. If you react calmly, the world feels manageable. Your internal habits change your external reality, not because reality changes, but because your interpretation does. Every reaction is a vote for the person you are becoming. Vote impulsively and you build a reactive identity. Vote deliberately and you build a disciplined one. There is no neutral vote. Doing nothing is still training something. Pressure reveals training. When stakes are low, anyone can behave well. When pressure hits, the nervous system falls back on what it knows. That is why people fail at critical moments. They didn't suddenly become weak. They relied on training they never consciously built. Strong individuals do not rely on willpower in the moment. They rely on habits built through repetition. Calm under pressure is not talent. It is practiced behavior. This applies to focus, relationships, leadership, and self-respect. If you react emotionally in conversations, you train people to provoke you. If you stay composed, you train them to respect boundaries. Behavior teaches others how to treat you, but first it teaches you how to treat yourself. Most people wait for big moments to change. That is a mistake. Big moments are decided by small habits practiced daily. The way you react to minor annoyances is the same system you will use during major challenges. If you cannot control yourself in small moments, you will not magically control yourself in large ones. Awareness is the turning point. The moment you realize that every reaction is training, you become more careful. You stop asking, "How do I feel right now?" and start asking, "What am I reinforcing?" Question changes behavior. This does not mean becoming emotionless. It means becoming intentional. Feeling is human. Reacting blindly is optional. You can feel anger without acting on it. You can feel fear without obeying it. You can feel pressure without collapsing. The future version of you is being built right now, reaction by reaction, not by intentions, not by goals, by behavior. What you practice becomes permanent. If you want a disciplined future, practice discipline now. If you want calm under pressure, practice calm in irritation. If you want focus in chaos, practice focus in distraction. Every reaction is training. Choose wisely because you are always in practice. Calm decisions create long-term dominance. Strong starts line, expend it and don't. Heading in 800 words, calm decisions create long-term dominance. Not loud moves, not emotional victories, not impulsive wins that feel powerful in the moment and expensive later. Real dominance is built quietly, patiently, and deliberately by people who can think clearly while others lose control. When emotions settle, vision expands. When vision expands, decisions improve. And improved decisions repeated over time create outcomes that cannot be challenged. Most people chase short-term control. They want immediate relief, quick validation, fast results. Emotional decisions serve that desire. They feel decisive, but they are unstable. They solve today while sabotaging tomorrow. Calm decisions operate differently. They sacrifice momentary comfort for lasting position. Pressure exposes the difference. Under pressure, emotional thinkers rush. They speak too soon, commit too fast, and reveal too much. Calm thinkers slow down. They gather information. They consider consequences beyond the immediate moment. That patience is not hesitation. It is calculation. Dominance is not about overpowering others. It is about POS. Issuing yourself so others cannot overpower you. Calm decisions create that position. They reduce errors. They protect resources. They preserve reputation. Over time, these advantages compound until they become unassailable. History, business, and leadership all reward the same trait, composure. Those who panic at uncertainty make defensive choices. Those who stay calm make strategic ones. Defensive choices limit growth. Strategic choices expand it. Calm decisions are grounded in reality, not ego. Ego wants to win now, to look strong, to be right. Calm wants to be effective. Effectiveness does not care about appearances, it cares about results. And results reward patience. When emotions lead decisions, consistency collapses. Mood swings dictate action. Focus shifts with feelings. Progress becomes uneven. Calm decision-makers operate with consistency. They move steadily while others oscillate. That steady movement creates reliability, and reliability creates trust. Trust is power. People follow those who are predictable in values but flexible in strategy. Calm decisions create that predictability. You become someone whose actions make sense even under pressure. That credibility cannot be faked. Calm also protects against manipulation. Emotional people are easy to provoke. Their decisions can be steered by triggering anger, fear, or pride. Calm individuals are difficult to influence because they do not react immediately. They evaluate. That delay breaks manipulation. Long-term dominance requires endurance. Emotional decision-making burns energy quickly. Stress accumulates, burnout follows. Calm decision-making conserves energy. It allows sustainability. Those who last the longest often win, not because they are faster, but because they are still standing when others collapse. Mistakes are inevitable. Calm decision-makers recover faster. They analyze without self-attack. K. They adjust without panic. Emotional decision-makers spiral. They blame, justify, or double down on error. Recovery speed determines long-term advantage. Calm decisions also shape culture. In teams, families, and organizations, emotional leadership creates fear and instability. Calm leadership creates safety and clarity. People perform better when they are not bracing for emotional volatility. Dominance built on calm is quiet. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself through results. Over time,